Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources. There's an irony in this trend of pushing hard to achieve that so many people miss. The irony is that when you take care of your needs, instead of pushing past them for the sake of productivity, you actually become more productive. Order matters when you want to be productive, and meeting your needs first is a must. You're listening to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zaratny, founder of Positively Productive Systems, and a productivity coach certified in positive psychology and stress management. Join me as we explore ways to live a more proactive, positive life with episodes on productivity, self-awareness, mindset, entrepreneur life, habits and systems, simplicity, fun, and more. I understand overwhelm personally as a multi-passionate entrepreneur, wife and mom to kids and cats, and as a caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Welcome to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and as a compassionate productivity coach, I put the person before the productivity. In our hustle and grind world, it's easy to get so focused on achievement, we forget about the impact our life experience has on us and how we need to honor and understand it in order to heal and grow. We've talked about our well-being repeatedly on the podcast, from stress management and play to grief and trauma and so much more. With over 200 episodes, the categories continue to grow, such that I'm working on ways to help you sort through the topics to find the ones that interest you as quickly as possible. One way is through special playlists that you can find on the podcast page of the website, positivelyproductive.com/podcast. Go there, and as of this episode, you'll find playlists for stress management, self-care, decluttering, tech, and strategy calls. Those are the episodes where I coach clients live. I'll add more as we go, and in every episode, I mention other episodes that relate to the topic when appropriate, so be sure to listen for those as well. Speaking of which, one of my personal favorites regarding today's topic is actually a bonus episode I co-created with Alicia Galati, whose name you may recognize as a repeat guest on the show and the owner of Galati Media, the company that produces this podcast. At the time, Alicia had been witnessing a discouraging trend with her clients pushing to create podcast content beyond their limits. And she knew I'd be the right person to create a podcast response to this trend with. The gist of our conversation is a personal, heartfelt reminder that there is nothing more important than your mental health. We remind you to leave the metrics and comparisons at the door and enter a space with us where it's safe and we focus on well-being first. And although we did this episode a while ago, its message remains current and perhaps even more important today. There's an irony in this trend of pushing hard to achieve that so many people miss, and that's part of what we'll talk about today. The irony is that when you take care of your needs, instead of pushing past them for the sake of productivity, you actually become more productive. Order matters when you want to be productive, and meeting your needs first is a must. So what do I mean by needs? I'm defining them today through a framework created by psychologist Abraham Maslow. In his 1943 paper, A Theory of Human Motivation, Maslow outlines a hierarchical structure of human needs categorized into 5 distinct levels, which individuals strive to fulfill. You've probably seen an image of a pyramid somewhere with those levels on it, which has a mix of physiological and psychological needs. Maslow developed this theory based on his extensive research and observations of human behavior, particularly focusing on individuals who demonstrated exceptional creativity and fulfillment. Rooted in the idea of human potential and self-fulfillment, his hierarchy offered a structured approach to understanding human motivation and all its complexities. There are some inherent challenges and inaccuracies and other considerations with this psychological model, which I'll touch upon as we go through it. Very quickly, I want to mention my guest, Jeff Harry, who was on the podcast years ago talking about releasing your inner critic through play. In his episode, he mentions the hierarchy of needs and how Maslow had observed the ways of the Blackfoot tribe to understand what it means to be fulfilled, and that that's actually the basis for this model. I felt I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this origination, and you can hear more about it in that episode with Jeff, which I've linked in the show notes. Now let's review the 5 levels of the hierarchy. Depicted again as a pyramid, the levels include, starting at the bottom, physiological needs, and then working its way up with safety, love and belonging, esteem, and finishing with self-actualization. According to Maslow, these are 5 key human needs that people must meet in order to achieve overall well-being. Individuals progress through these levels, with each level building upon the previous one, ultimately leading to the realization of one's full potential. It's suggested that the pyramid design wasn't actually from Maslow, and rather created as a visual effect after the fact to help show the relationship of the needs. Maslow believed that human needs are hierarchical, which means some take priority over others, and it was his use of the word hierarchy that led others to believe that the pyramid was the most accurate depiction. In this visual, each need occupies a different level of the pyramid, with the lowest and biggest levels representing the basic and highest priority needs that are essential for survival: food and shelter. The smaller and higher sections represent self-esteem and self-actualization, which are essential for fulfillment and emotional well-being. In addition to blocking self-actualization, Maslow argued that failure to have those basic needs met at various stages of the hierarchy could also lead to illness, particularly psychiatric illness or mental health issues. Individuals whose physiological needs are not met can become physically ill, and when safety needs are not met, that's psychological trauma and post-traumatic stress can occur. Individuals who don't feel love or belonging can experience depression or anxiety, and lack of esteem or inability to self-actualize can also contribute to depression and anxiety. Now, some critics say that while it's logical to put physiological needs first and self-actualization last, people do not necessarily pursue or obtain the needs in this order. And that makes sense. I mean, humans are complex, emotions are complex, needs can be complex too, and the order in which we do it is not always going to be consistent. This model has also been criticized as being too generalized. Not all needs apply to all people. So this is why you must take it with a grain of salt and consider your needs and how you prioritize them. Another criticism relates to the idea that self-actualization is not linear. In his early work, Maslow argued that a person could only self-actualize once they had met their basic needs. However, an older paper notes sometimes not being able to meet one's basic needs can help them identify their self-actualization goals. Everything works together and not necessarily in a linear fashion. Maslow also acknowledged that unmet needs could be motivation for self-actualization in his later work. So admittedly, this is a strong set of criticisms, but that doesn't mean the hierarchy isn't useful. So what do we take from this model then? I believe it's a strong list to use as a basis to check in with yourself, and one that helps you spot a shift in your life that can cause imbalance or unsettling. Maslow's hierarchy of needs can be a helpful tool in setting personal goals. For one, it provides a framework. The hierarchy offers a structured approach to understanding your needs, which can help you identify areas for personal growth and goal setting. It can help you prioritize your needs by recognizing which needs are unmet, reminding you what needs you want to meet. You can prioritize goals that address those needs first, and that leads to a greater sense of well-being and fulfillment even before you get to the point of self-actualization, which is ultimately the end goal. You can identify obstacles. So understanding the hierarchy can help you recognize how unmet needs can be hindering your progress toward other goals. This is a classic case of not being able to grow because there's something sorely lacking. And it allows you to address those needs and then move forward and grow more effectively. It also promotes holistic development because the hierarchy encourages you to consider all aspects of your well-being, from the basic needs, naps and schnackies, right, to self-actualization, which is your purpose and true fulfillment. And that leads to a more balanced, or shall we say harmonious, approach to not only goal setting, but living your life. The takeaway today is simple. Meeting your needs first is essential for wellness and growth. Let the pyramid remind you of those potential needs you have and consider the changes that you can make to ensure that they're met. Your first step today is self-assessment. Review the 5 levels of needs: physiological, safety, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization, and consider which ones are unmet and why, and what kind of impact that has on your life. Then determine which unmet needs are most important to start with. And yes, that can absolutely be sleep or food. And then start. We've talked about reflecting and self-assessments in other ways, and this is a simple one to add to your list to do regularly. You not only want to do this, you want to repeat it. Would you like help with this kind of review? A strategy session is an ideal coaching container for not only doing this assessment, but creating the best way for you to approach it and setting up the habit to repeat it. Head to the coaching page of the Positively Productive website, positivelyproductive.com/coaching for more details, and message me to book a free chat, ask questions, and talk about what the next best steps would be for you. I'd also love to hear what you're focusing on next. Did this one resonate with you? Do you have a need that's unmet that you're going to work on? Or maybe a goal? Please message me and let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.